sometimes it's really hard to find that different voice, especially all coming from one mind. Like each character should kind of act and sound differently. And so the way that I try to get around that is I try to attach somebody who I know or know of to a character when I'm writing the character. So I'm imagining someone like Brett Weinstein, who's a very intelligent biologist, as kind of my main character. Taylor, I mean, we all know one Taylor who complains a lot, but I don't know. I think that I'm imagining maybe somebody I went to high school with or college with, or somebody who I used to work with. The rest of the characters are not as important as our two main characters. So I'm just going to focus on them for the most part.
A woman screaming and wailing. She's being comforted. And then let's say we have... So she's one of our characters, but maybe she's a background character, and she's being comforted by our protagonist. And you know what? I'm thinking that maybe he's in mid-50s, biologist. And our antagonist, I'm just going to make him like a young guy. Should I make him a guy or a girl? Well, I'm a guy, so I relate better to guys. I think I could write a guy better than writing a girl. Although, I have been trying to kind of explore and write from the perspective of like people who are different than me. It's really hard like when you're crossing cultural gaps or gender gaps and you're trying to represent the people who are not you like in an accurate manner. It's definitely a skill, and when you write like something like that, it requires a little bit more research. I feel like anybody in this situation would probably be equally scared and aggressive if they are like doubting the words of the potential like leader or the person taking charge, whether it's a guy or a girl. So I think I'm going to make it a girl. What I find when I'm writing descriptions of people, like I sometimes imagine somebody very specific in my head, but I think that when somebody else reads that description, they might not feel the same way about that person as I do. So I try to be detailed but vague, more detailed about their background and personality than the way they look. And here's a perfect example. If I were to say the most beautiful woman in the world and then describe my wife, now when I say the most beautiful woman in the world, people might initially say, oh, okay, like I have an image in my head, and then I describe my wife, and that's completely not the image they had in their head because they have a different, like, you know, desires than I do. And so now they're disconnected from this person, this woman who's in my mind is the most beautiful woman in the world, but to them they're like, oh, well, that's not what I'm into, so I don't think that person is as beautiful as you do. And so if you're just vague and say the most beautiful woman in the world, then whatever they initially imagine is what they're going to see, and then they're going to have that connection. And that's kind of what novels do. Screenplays are different, but at this point in the screenplay, like I haven't cast anybody, so I'm imagining somebody specific, but I'm not going to put those details in here. I'm going to let, like, if this ever gets made, if I decide to direct this and make this, I'll then go back and rewrite this as a shooting script with some camera angles and movements and more details about the characters and what I think that they should look like. But as of right now, it's just a spec script, and it should have this balance of detail but also vagueness, because the first draft of any script, you can assume that you're not going to be filming it. I mean, unless you've already been given a bunch of money and they're like, hey, go write a script and then immediately shoot it. That never happens.